The refinery quietly changing what it ran because the oil it needed didn't arrive. In Trump's second term, Washington is threatening Venezuela, leaning on Canada, and talking about drugs. But under the noise, something else is happening. The U.S. is producing more oil than ever, and still running short of the one kind its refineries can't operate without. Canada is shipping heavy crude across the Pacific, so Venezuela's barrels are being locked out. Gulf Coast refineries are, boxed in by decisions made years ago. Nothing exploded, no alarms sounded. But, the system just lost its margin, and it doesn't get it back quietly. Behind the speeches, refinery balance sheets are flashing red. According to conversations reported by the Wall Street Journal in recent weeks, plants along the Gulf Coast are tightening their crude slates. Not because oil is scarce, but because the wrong kind of oil is disappearing. Heavy barrels, not fentanyl, are the pressure point Trump now faces. The contradiction sits in plain sight. Canada is publicly described as a trusted partner, yet Section 232 tariffs are revived under a national security rationale and explicitly linked to drug flows across the northern border. Venezuela, meanwhile, is branded a narco state, its tankers seized and exports choked. Reuters reported earlier this year that United States officials were openly weighing tariffs on Canadian energy as part of this same security framework. Allies and adversaries are being hit with different tools, but justified with identical language. Analysts immediately focused on what the rhetoric ignored. So, Canada supplies roughly 62% of all U.S. crude imports, according to U.S. Energy Information Administration data cited by Bloomberg. And when the focus narrows to heavy crude, the dense feedstock U.S. refineries are configured to process, the share climbs closer to 3/4. Tariffs sold as drug controls would land on the single most irreplaceable input in the American refining system. Why this matters is mechanical, not ideological. Heavy crude just cannot be swapped out on command. U.S. oil production surged to about 13.5 million barrels per day last year, according to the EIA, but the surge came almost entirely from light shale oil. For decades, refiners invested billions in cokers and upgrading units built specifically for heavy and sour crude because those barrels were cheaper and abundant. That sunk capital still dictates operating economics. Even at record output, the United States imported roughly 6.6 million barrels per day of crude in 2024, and about 60% was heavy, based on EIA import breakdowns. Canada anchors that dependence. In 2024, Canada exported about 4.2 million barrels per day of crude, Bloomberg reported, with more than 95% flowing south. Nearly 80% of those barrels were heavy oil sands crude. For years, Canada's leverage was limited by geography. Pipelines ran almost exclusively into the United States. Discounts were structural, not strategic. That constraint fractured on May 1st, 2024. After years of delay and ballooning costs, the Trans Mountain expansion entered service. The Financial Times described the startup as a structural shift in North American energy flows. Capacity from Alberta to the Pacific coast jumped from roughly 300,000 barrels per day to nearly 890,000. For the first time at scale, Canadian heavy crude gained direct access to ocean tankers at the Westridge Marine Terminal near Vancouver. The change was not theoretical. Reuters shipping data showed that most of the growth in Canadian crude exports last year moved by tanker rather than pipeline. Roughly 70% of that incremental volume went to non-U.S. destinations, primarily Asia. By late autumn, Trans Mountain reported record monthly loadings of heavy crude, with more than half sailing west. China moved quickly into the opening. Bloomberg analysis found that since mid-2024, China has taken roughly 200,000 barrels per day of Canadian crude via Trans Mountain, compared with a negligible average over the previous decade. California and Alaska still receive shipments, but Asia is now the marginal buyer. Canadian producers are no longer captive to a single customer. Strategic leverage shifts quietly when exit doors appear. Trans Mountain is already studying ways to lift effective capacity by another 200,000 to 300,000 barrels per day using drag-reducing agents and additional pumping, according to filings cited by Reuters. Utilization is running above 80%. Alberta officials have discussed investing in refinery upgrades in Japan, including coking units tailored to Canadian heavy crude. Each step deepens optionality without cutting U.S. supply outright. This is where Trump's tariff posture collides with refinery reality. The threat itself accelerates diversification. U.S. refiners feel the friction first. Executives in Texas and Louisiana told the Wall Street Journal this fall that heavy crude differentials have tightened, blending costs have risen, and margins are compressing even before any formal tariff decision is made. Why this matters is leverage, not volume. Losing pricing power over a fraction of heavy supply reshapes refinery economics. If Canada is slowly gaining freedom of movement, the other pillar of heavy crude is being locked in place. Venezuela holds the world's largest proven crude reserves, about 303 billion barrels, according to OPEC figures cited by the Financial Times, and most of it is heavy or extra heavy oil from the Orinoco Belt. For U.S. Gulf Coast refiners, this crude once fit perfectly. In the early 2000s, Venezuela shipped more than 1 million barrels per day to the United States. That flow collapsed long before Trump returned to office, but the intensity has changed. Reuters reported in recent weeks that Venezuelan exports have fallen sharply as Washington escalated ship seizures and expanded sanctions on what it describes as a shadow fleet. Estimates now point toward exports sinking into the low tens of thousands of barrels per day by year-end, down from levels above 1 million barrels per day 2 decades ago. Diluent is the choke point. Venezuela's extra-heavy crude must be blended with lighter hydrocarbons to move. Restrictions on diluent exports, combined with shipping and insurance sanctions, cut directly into production capacity. Each enforcement action is framed as counter-narcotics policy. Each one further immobilizes a reserve base uniquely suited to U.S. refineries. Here, the story turns inward. The drug narrative explains the language. It does not explain the geometry. Canada is gaining alternatives just as Venezuela is being frozen. One supplier becomes optional. The other is kept inaccessible. According to analysts quoted by Bloomberg, sanctions now function less as punishment than as a gate. Venezuela's oil can return only if Washington allows it under conditions Washington sets. Heavy crude is tightening where it is needed most, while the world's largest heavy reserve is deliberately kept offline. On the supply side, Canadian production continues to rise. Western Canadian output is expected to average around 4.5 million barrels per day in 2025, according to forecasts from the Canadian Energy Regulator. Nearly 4/5 is heavy crude. Exports are at record levels, and the share moving by tanker continues to grow. On the demand side, U.S. Gulf Coast refineries remain structurally dependent on heavy feedstock. Imports from Mexico have fallen. Venezuelan barrels are effectively locked out. Maintenance outages and wildfires periodically disrupt Canadian flows. Refineries cannot reconfigure at speed. Cokers idle without heavy input. Light oil backs up. Margins compress. That is why refinery executives have been warning, quietly but consistently, that heavy crude has become the binding constraint of U.S. energy security, even as total production sets records. Why this matters now is timing. The system is, approaching a forcing moment. The Atlantic hurricane season peaks just as Gulf Coast refineries enter their autumn turnaround cycle, when maintenance reduces operating flexibility. At the same time, the White House faces looming decisions on whether to formalize tariffs on Canadian energy under Section 232 and whether to renew or tighten Venezuelan sanctions as existing licenses expire. Any one of those events, a major storm, a delayed maintenance restart, or a tariff announcement, would tighten heavy supply immediately, with no rapid substitute. The disbelief settling in around Trump is not about scarcity in the ground. It's really about immobility in the system. Canada now has ships. Venezuela has reserves. U.S. refineries have fixed assets that just cannot move. The next disruption will decide which of those facts dominates and whether Washington still controls the flow of the one barrel it cannot replace. The pressure tightens further when you follow what refiners are doing right now, not what governments are saying. According to refinery utilization data cited by Bloomberg in recent weeks, several Gulf Coast plants have quietly adjusted crude slates away from optimal heavy blends, accepting lower yields to preserve operational stability. This is not a long-term strategy. It's a stopgap. Each percentage point shift away from heavy crude reduces diesel output and raises per-barrel processing costs, a trade-off refiners tolerate only briefly. At the same time, heavy crude markets outside the United States are absorbing barrels faster than expected. Chinese state refiners increased purchases of discounted heavy grades throughout late 2024 and early 2025, according to customs data summarized by Reuters, partly to hedge against Middle East supply risk and partly to lock in long-term feedstock security. Canadian heavy crude fits that strategy cleanly. It is politically stable, contract reliable, and now physically reachable by tanker. Every long-term Asian contract signed reduces the volume available to be pulled back into the U.S. Why this matters is contractual inertia. Once supply chains reset, they do not snap back easily. Also, regulatory friction compounds the problem. Environmental permitting timelines for refinery modifications stretch into years, not months. Even modest changes to allow higher light oil runs require approvals that cannot be rushed during a supply shock. According to the American fuel and petrochemical manufacturers, cited by the New York Times earlier this year, fewer than a dozen U.S. refineries retain full heavy crude flexibility without blending penalties. The rest operate inside narrow margins. Meanwhile, Mexico, the third historical source of heavy crude for U.S. refineries, is no longer a stabilizer. Pemex production has continued to decline, and Reuters reported this spring that exports of Mexico's Maya heavy crude have fallen as domestic refining absorbs more supply. That removes another adjustment valve just as Canada diversifies and Venezuela remains frozen. Financial markets are already signaling awareness. Futures spreads for heavy light differentials have narrowed sharply compared with historical averages, according to CME data referenced by Bloomberg. Narrow spreads sound benign, but for refiners they signal competition for barrels, not abundance. When heavy crude trades closer to light, refinery margins compress from both sides. Why this matters now is political exposure. Energy price spikes driven by refinery constraints do not announce themselves as heavy crude shortages. They surface as diesel inflation, jet fuel volatility, and regional gasoline dislocations. Costs voters feel without seeing the cause. That lag is dangerous. Behind closed doors, analysts quoted by the Financial Times have warned that U.S. sanctions policy is now interacting with physical oil constraints in ways Washington did not model a decade ago. Back then, shale growth masked structural weaknesses. Today, those buffers are thinner. Control over supply is no longer about owning production. It is about steering where the irreplaceable barrels are allowed to go. The next escalation will not come from a speech. It will come from a shipping manifest, a refinery outage report, or a storm track bending toward the Gulf. When that happens, the gap between political narrative and industrial reality will collapse in real time, and the margin for error will be measured in days, not years. We're glad you're enjoying this video. Please like and subscribe. Check out another video that is now on your screen.